If it pleases the court, my name is Cicchini, Cicchini, initials TC. Your Honour, I'm here today on behalf of my client Darren Selders, a 14-year-old Torres Strait Island boy who is being charged with 9 counts of burglary and 1 count of stealing. My client has advised me today that he wishes to change his plea to not guilty. The Defence Counsel believes that there is an evidential argument to exclude the evidence against my client, and pursuant to sections 590AA of the Criminal Code, which states that if evidence is unlawfully obtained, that this evidence can be excluded. Now, in relation to Hasler and also section 130 of the Queensland Evidence Act, hereafter referred to as the QEA, I will submit today that evidence against my client should be omitted. Section 130A states that nothing in the Act derogates from the power of the court in a criminal proceeding to exclude evidence if the court is satisfied that it would be unfair to the person charged to admit that evidence. Now, from the submissions that you will hear today, Your Honour, you will see that it would be grossly unfair if the evidence against my client was to be submitted today. I'll do this through 2 phases. Firstly, by talking about gratuitous concurrence that occurred against my client, and also procedural misconduct. Using my client's age and his ethnical background will be 2 determining factors of how we go about this today. Now, my client's ethnical background and his age lead to evidential signs of gratuitous concurrence. Now, on the facts of the case presented before the court, it is clear that my client was intimidated and as a result was just trying to please the officers who apprehended him outside of that house. Now, this is evident through his muffled words and lack of eye contact. Whenever questioned, my client always responded with simple one-word answers, which were yeah, nah, and he often never gave eye contact, often looking at his hands or his feet as a result. Now, when he was apprehended, he was asked questions in the car without a support person, which I'll get to later. However, when he did get to the station and the support person was supplied for him, they also gave him negative advice, which was just to tell my support person, Wendy, told my client to make sure that the questions the police asked him. Now, this is not what a reasonable support person would definitely advise my client, and we will get into that shortly anyway. Further, Your Honour, Bunnings and Cross states that any evidence admitted unlawfully must be excluded from proceedings. Now, pursuant to the second submission that there was procedural failure, I would like to show how this evidence was obtained unlawfully. Now, if I may draw the court's attention to section 421 of the Police Powers and Responsibilities Act, hereafter referred to as the PPRA, which is in relation to questioning of a child. Now, the Act clearly states that for it to occur, the person in question must reasonably be considered to be a child. Now, a 14-year-old boy, Darren Selders, can considerably be reasonably considered to be a child, if not guaranteed that you could suspect that he was a child. Not only can we just state that the police must have suspected this, we know they did because they did allow a support person to be there. However, instead of letting my client choose their support person to whom which they actually knew and trusted as per their rights, they gave one for them and told them that they had a couple of minutes alone with Wendy in the room. Now, my client is only 14 years of age, and pursuant to Section 6, subsection 2 of the Youth Justice Act, a person under 17 years old is considered a child, and therefore my client clearly fits into these parameters. Now, not only that, although a support person was there, which was not the correct one, as I previously stated, on the drive home after my client had been apprehended by the police pointed out several different houses that had been recently burgled and asked my client if he had burgled them. Now, this is a clear breach of section 421 of the PPRA, as there was no support person present whatsoever during this time. Now, under section 420 of the PPRA, there is a legal duty of the officers who reasonably suspect that a person is of Aboriginal Torres Strait Island descent to inform the accused that legal aid will be contacted on their behalf. Now, they should contact them as soon as they wish. On the facts presented, Your Honour, this simply did not happen. Lastly, I would like to submit that my client was clearly never cautioned in relation to 431 of the PPRA. And in particular, I would like to make it clear that my client was not aware of his right to remain silent, and that any evidence that any words that he used or anything he said could be used as evidence against him in the criminal proceedings. If my client was to know this, he most likely would have kept quiet in these times. Instead, he was actually told by the officers and by his support person, which he clearly did not trust, or he did trust but should not have trusted, I should say, as he clearly did not know them, where he was told just to answer the police's question, and this is a clear violation of section 431 of the PPRA. Now, to decide whether or not the evidence of my client should be submitted, we need to apply the Bunnings and Cross case, and as we know, this is done over 5 steps. Firstly, it needs to be determined if this, before the court, if this was a genuine mistake or if this was deliberate misconduct. Now, it is quite obvious due to the vast amount of misconducts that occurred and the virality of them that it was clear deliberate misconduct. However, if we did have to go down the line that it was just a clear mistake, then we would have to look at the cogency of the evidence. And although from all accounts the evidence seems to be quite cogent, the third step would be to see the expedited nature, if we needed to obtain this evidence so quickly that there was no need to follow proper procedure. On the facts, there is no reason to suggest this, as my client is a 14-year-old Torres Strait Island boy who clearly was going nowhere, not a flight risk, nothing like that. So that seems to be out of the question. Now, the fourth step refers to the severity of the charges. And although burglary and stealing might seem like large charges, there are often larger charges such as rape or murder, or say grievous bodily harm, which would be more pursuant to the fourth step of this, which we'll be talking about instead. Now, the final part of it was any statute breached while doing this? And well, it is clear that in section 5 of the PPRA, it outlines that the PPRA is actually put in place to protect the people who the police question and bring in. And this was clearly not done. The act was breached, and as a result, statute was breached, and it concludes the final step of this Bunnings and Cross. As a result, Your Honour, I would like to move that the evidence against my client be excluded from the case to protect the rights of my client. And if that is all, Your Honour, I would like to say thank you.